I'm in.
Yo, how's it going?
Heck yeah.
It's been a long time.
Apologies, everyone. My phone was dead. The first thing said by decentralized AI was, "Hey, what's up?" At Grumman. Yo. Grammatically incorrect as well.
I mean, that's the most fun part, really. If it was grammatically correct, what are we doing this for?
Baby steps. So this is a huge moment, I think, for Bittensor specifically, but and I know this sounds pretty highfalutin and maybe a bit arrogant, but for the world, um, there's a lot of pressure on the AI industry to regulate itself, and it doesn't know how to regulate itself, so it's going to go and give that task to governments. It really, really is important for us as individuals here to build a censorship resistant form of AI so that we can build a neural economy that isn't just going to be controlled by bureaucrats. I It's taken me a long time to understand why that's such an important thing. Um, I've always known it, but I think to understand it really, it took me a long time. Um, when I saw what is happening now with people's opinions about how AI should be governed, I mean, I didn't really believe it, but you have people out there saying that they want to pause it, as if that can be done, and that they should attempt to heavy hand the training and control of artificial intelligence entirely, so that only large corporations who are handshaking with politicians are going to be able to control the neural infrastructure of our future. I guess I always kind of knew that was a big deal, but now it's really staring us in the face. It's about uh, as important as the control of currency. So, anyways, we have this new network, and it's going to be really exciting to see what we can build on top of it and port as many applications as we can, and get as many miners on this network, and really show to the world what a decentralized AI is going to be about. So, yeah, that's all I'll say. That's all I'll say. Alo, we have a
Awesome.
Slido. We have
Yeah,
questions.
we do have a Slido. Actually, I wanted to share a couple of funny things. I've been pinging the network since it started up because I wanted to see what the responses come up. And I asked it to tell me about nihilism in one funny sentence, and it's actually pretty hilarious. So the first response is nihilism is like a party with no balloons, no cake, and nobody showing up, but still somehow expecting to have a good time.
That's great. I like that.
It's pretty bad. Nihilism is like a bald man arguing with a barber about the importance of haircuts.
Yeah.
All right, I'm done. Let's check
So
out the
over
Slido.
but before we get to that, so over the next couple of weeks, we want to do some live coding demonstrations of building on top of Bittensor. Robert has some amazing ideas. So why don't we announce what we're going to do next week partially, just to get people hyped because we're so fucking hyped. Hey Rob, you up here?
Yeah, I'm up here. The 7 days of code,
Is that what you're doing?
the live stream or the live stream
Yeah.
or the uh, Kanye Western.
No. The building applications. I mean, the Kanye West thing is
Yeah,
amazing, but we don't yet have an audio network to really take out Kanye. I'm still hoping that we can be friends with Kanye before we steal his voice, but well, maybe that's how we'll get to him.
there'll be slight variations, just enough. But yeah, so right now we're working on this a project that is built on top of a validator that's running in the prompting network that we're going to be calling Pocket API. And what you're going to be able to do with this is with be able to run in the same way that you run like a subtensor node, like Docker Compose up-d. You'll be able to run that. You'll run that. Be able to run that same command after you've configured, like your wallets and your validator questions and your validator system prompts. Um, and be able to run your own API that you can build applications on top of. So every AI demo that you've been seeing recently, I don't know about most of y'all, but my Twitter feed is completely dominated with, a new demo coming out every single day. And the really cool thing is that by being a validator, or even just having a registered hotkey cold key combo inside of the Bittensor network, particularly the prompting subnetwork, is going to give you access to the exact same type of API that you could build with like OpenAI. So the idea here is to have a drop-in replacement to all the other model providers to make it super easy to have your validator route and select responses for you. So if you want to ask a biology question, the validator has learned through its gating model who to route that question to, and be able to get the best response out. And so this way, not only is it easier on the actual app developer in terms of selecting their models, okay, should I use a self-hosted model? Should I use GPT Turbo 3.5? All of that is taken care of by the validator and with Pocket API, to where all you have to do is build your front-end application and then just have it either connect to the WebSocket or REST API.
It's hard to really envision what you don't have in front of you. So we're going to have to build all these things, and I'm really excited to do it all, Rob.
Yeah. Well, and that's what we're going to be doing next week,
Yeah.
with the live streams.
Yeah.
Each day we're going to go and find a cool demo, whether it's a Web 2 application that accepts Stripe for payment, a Web 3 application that uses Morales as a backend, to be able to accept like Ethereum payments or USDC payments, or to be able to do delegated staking. The really great thing about being a validator on Bittensor, in the prompting subnetwork, is that you as the app developer have control and get to choose your payment methods, the actual business model of your application. So we're going to give a lot of examples of that over the next week.
I think the censorship resistance here is really key as well. The validator heads, of which there will be 128, are each entry points onto this intelligence layer. And I mean, you can also query the network, but it depends on people's blacklists. But the point I'm making is that we have 128 nodes or entry points which can censor or choose not to censor and compete in that marketplace, to give people access to these models. They themselves can also query the network to train, and this is the core machine learning problem that we're working on, and it's really coming to fruition. Our predictions about distillation being one of the most important techniques in artificial intelligence, where the market for machine learning models and the outputs of those models is now the prime element, the apex element of intelligence. RRFHL. We have just core distillation. We're going to have share GPT style data sets coming out. We want to make the chinchilla data set of reinforcement learning on top of Bittensor, where it's a massive, we train incredibly long periods of time on masses of outputs from a whole plethora, a whole pantheon of language models, and then train our own best in class and just host it right back on Bittensor. And every validator is going to have that power, which is very cool. So we have 128 machine learning companies with access to the best in class, most broad foundation of machine intelligence in existence, that are going to be competing with each other to do this better, and also hosting it back on the network in this recursive way. So that's what really, really drives me. But anyways, enough about what we're going to do. Obviously, it's going to be an amazing set of weeks coming forward. But let's answer these questions in the Slido, Alla, and deal with the current organically growing, slightly chaotic network that we're dealing with here. Al, if you could give us those Slidos.
Sorry, I've been muted this whole time. Yeah, I'm going to go through this by votes. It's because it seems like the fairest approach. There's a lot of questions to get through. So let's get started. So first off, why does a validator need on subnet 1 need 40 gigs of GPU RAM as a minimum, and why GPU instead of CPU?
Okay, the short answer is because we use a larger model. The long answer is that the validators, instead of learning directly who's valuable, we have a pre-trained model on the network that can be swapped in and out, and that's a reward model. And the reward model is quite large. It's a GPTJ. Rob, do you want to speak to that? You know more.
Yeah, so we're actually running a couple of different models when you run a validator. So you're not only running a fine-tuned GPTJ that has the training objective of scoring the output, like a sentence or a block of text, right? But you're also running a gating model. And so just the FP32 weights of the GPTJ model is pretty big and can take up to 30 to 40 gigs on its own. And we cast this down using FP16. And, there's also, optimizations you can go even further on the quantization, going down to 8-bit, 4-bit. But it's still going to require a GPU to be able to run that reward model very quickly and be able to run the gating model, which is like the page rank of the validator. It's how it figures out who to send what request to who. And so running, it might be, you could also have a setup where, you have like 2 or 3 consumer graphics cards on one machine, and then you run the gating model on one, you run the reward model on a second, and then you have like, potentially even a third model that's doing the prompting. So, there's, you could have at least 40 gigabytes on one card, or you could cut it up into 3 as well, or move it down based off having a GPU per model. So we're just running more models on a single validator.
Yeah, long story
Awesome.
short.
So basically, short answer is the validator is doing a lot more work than they did in subnet 3. Is that right?
For sure. I mean, it's running multiple more models than the validator was before. You could run technically you could run I think with CPU, if you just had enough actual CPU RAM, you could run with a validator on a CPU, but not in this case because you have to be able to service that reward signal and that gating signal very quickly.
So then if people ran it on a CPU, would it still perform, like it wouldn't perform as well, but it would still run, right?
So yeah, I mean, but it would be so slow that I think you would have timeout issues. The service that you're providing probably wouldn't be that good. I think that if you want to run it on CPUs, the direction you should go towards is quantization. There's a lot of really great work in Bits and Bytes about this, GPTQ. So there's another good project. So if you're interested in running that on CPU, you might need to do your own custom implementation.
Okay, sounds good. Fair enough. Second question, is it recommended that validators run on both subnets? If outside the top 75 validators, is that even possible? If you're running 2 subnets, would we need beefier spec machine?
Oh, yeah.
You want to run across multiple machines, probably, always, as a validator.
Yeah, you really don't want to run one machine on all subnets, though, right? Like, it's better to run separate machines on separate subnets, even though you're sharing the same, say, hotkey or same code key. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I would say have multiple machines just so that the IPs don't get jumbled, like the Axon ports and whatnot. It's listen, I don't want to say it's definitely. I wouldn't say it's recommended to run it all on the same server, but theoretically, I mean, you could technically do it, but at that point, I think it's a trade-off between your place or your position in the like how much is that going to affect your emission.
Awesome. What end user experience will this new network enable?
Auto GPT.
Anything Yeah, anything that you see OpenAI doing or any other company.
Acceptance.
We are Walmart,
Yeah.
like
I
they're
think
model providers.
I think maybe there's some value in diving a little deeper here, right? We could maybe also describe how, say, somebody who's looking to power their system with some AI, they could just do it with a few lines of code and just talking to API, right? You have the capabilities of OpenAI, but the ease of use is also there's something to be said here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and it's all you can do it all self-hosted as well, which is what's really cool about it. If you want to have your own server and your own validator, and like you could control the experience very granularly, but also be able to use the gating model to route to different servers. So for example, OpenAI, their endpoint is a miner in the network, right? Cohere, self-hosted models like Llama, Vicuna, Alpaca, all the variations that we've seen lately. The Databricks dall-e one, like there's a plethora of these models, right? So if OpenAI goes down, or if Cohere goes down, or one of these self-hosteds go down, when you build your application, you're not going to have to worry about your endpoint going down or you getting banned. And so as a result, you can build the exact same types of applications that you were before, just probably at a better price point over the long term, but also in terms of its decentralization and resiliency to a single model failing.
That makes sense. So really, at the end of the day, we're kind of providing breadth as well as depth, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like the in terms of integrating the API into your application, like whether it's in JavaScript, whether it's a Python Streamlit application, the replacing your current model provider with us is 1 to 2 lines. Maybe even just changing a URL.
Yeah, and also we can be cross-border here in the way that people communicate with Bittensor. So there's obviously liquid staking, so you can stake into the validators and get access that way. If people want to use Web3 technologies to do this. But the validators, and I know there's a couple of people that are already doing this in the community, like Mog Machine, are looking at ways of doing like Stripe payment API keys, so like a really standard blue chip entry point into the models. And all of those, I mean, both of those ways of connecting to Bittensor are fairly simple for people on either side of that barrier. So we can really build a lot of diversity into just the way that people interface with this network. I think that's really cool. I mean, obviously, like LangChain, the other week we were playing with LangChain. That's pretty cool. 2 lines of code. You can build agents on top of this network. You can do auto GPT on top of this network. You can do a lot of different things. The difference is that it's unstoppable, right? It's like you query this endpoint and you're getting access to a whole bunch of different domain experts, routing between those domain experts, and getting that diversity and redundancy, hopefully, so that your app doesn't go down. So that's really cool. I mean, we never thought we'd be app developers, but here we are.
All right, awesome. Okay. I think that hiring a community manager for the Bittensor Twitter account can be very beneficial. Completely agree. We are actually fully open for any recommendations or any resumes, so please forward them to me or Const.
That hurt.
Yeah, but it's true. We do need one, and that is something we're hiring for. So please let us know. Are there any differences in staking rewards depending on the chosen validator?
I'd like to also speak to the previous point. Like, we have the Bittensor Twitter, but we want to be just Opentensor. Like, we don't want to just reflect the entire network just because we have the name, and so we're gonna likely move to become the Opentensor Twitter, and try to lower our position sort of in the messaging of the entire network because it's decentralized. Really, we don't control this thing entirely, and that's by design. So
nor do we want to.
yeah, nor do we want to. Yeah.
So yeah, expect that as a coming change, folks. We will probably be moving away from running the Bittensor Twitter, be more Opentensor. Are there any differences in staking rewards depending on the chosen validator? So
Yes.
I'll go for Const.
Yes. By staking rewards, it's the amount of. It's basically the amount that doesn't go to them through the validation dividends. That 18%, which is going to change based on which validator you select to delegate into, because some of them will perform better than others. We already have that a fair distribution in those rates across validators, and so there's some competition. If that's, I think that's what the question was asking, and that's my answer. Yeah.
I think another thing to keep in mind is that staking rewards will also be affected by whatever emissions we set for each subnet, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, but validators will have to compete across all subnets. One flip here is that the stake is global. So if you unstake from one network, you unstake from all of them, and that is a bit confusing. But it's so that there's not an economic poverty in one network, so that there won't be consensus or a strong consensus in that network.
Mm-hmm. So if I'm running a miner on Finny, can I quote unquote drop from subnet 3 to subnet 1 if I have my miner in the 80% part?
No. So there's the hotkey that you've won in subnetwork 3 is not connected to subnet 1. There's no network connection between them. We could build that in, but that wouldn't make any sense, so we just don't have that. Yeah.
But we will eventually.
Well, it wouldn't make sense right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it won't. It doesn't make sense right now, but we did a lot of research last October. Soon, but soon. Or far. Soon, but far. Yeah.
But it is network connection requirements are a thing. How do I register to the subnet? I recommend you take a look at our our docs that I've posted in the general. I'll also post it in announcements to make sure everybody sees it. Our docs actually show how to register and how to get the subnet, as well as the test network as well. Do you plan on increasing UID number after this in the near future? If so, I would like to have some kind of roadmap for UID increase.
Are we intending to increase the UIDs in this network? Yes, we are. So I think we have 64 right now. We're going to go forward, and then the roadmap going past 1024 will depend on how the network behaves at 1024. So we're reserving the right on that one about how large the network will get.
So expect over the next few weeks at least, short term, is going to be up to 1024. After that, we'll basically measure.
So the next 3 weeks, 1024, but then afterwards, we can't promise because we want to see how the system converges basically with the 1024. Yeah.
I think Mog Machine asked this question already in the Discord, but I'm going to ask it here anyways because there's more visibility. What will the miner and more specifically for me, validator immunity period be? I need to understand how long we have to fix issues in these early stages.
Yeah, so like the previous question, some of these parameters are going to be fine-tuned by the Opentensor Foundation to make sure that there's a sort of equilibrium in the network, that there's stability. Right now, for instance, there is no immunity on miners. That's because there's so few slots, and we want to have churn so that we can quickly let people test on the low emission network. So, and also so that UIDs that have been won by people that were here at the very beginning, just paying attention, will be pushed out by people that come along a bit later, and then we can coalesce and congeal the network as the system becomes more stable. The the immunity period will likely go back to where it was before. So it'll be exactly the same immunity period as Nakamoto. That's like that's you could say like the attractor state is that all the parameters will go exactly towards network 3. But there's no promises, and I can't say anything right now. The immunity period is not there. It'll be increased slowly as we go through the weeks, and perhaps we can produce a roadmap for the next 3 weeks, but just not off the cuff right here.
Mm-hmm. And what purpose will NetUID 3 serve moving forward?
NetUID is a very machine learning specific ML ops network for combining logic distributions. We'll remain doing research on this as well as embeddings, which we think is like a long-term goal for Bittensor to maintain this ML ops direction. The two networks don't need to be in conflict with each other. They both exist inside the ecosystem for a good reason. The movement to using text is obviously very cool because in the short term we can do applications on top of Bittensor. That's very amazing. But long term we're more interested in the distillation qualities of network. At least personally, I'm interested in the distillation qualities of network 1. Both those networks are core around distillation, which is like the art of taking the outputs from the network and learning from them in another model as a student. So we're going to basically explore both those approaches. Yeah, but long term, and this is something that's important for people to understand, is that as we increase the emissions on top of network 1, they have to decrease in network 3 because we can't just increase the absolute inflation of the network. That would, of course, would be bad.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And someone is asking, how will a winning slot work?
A winning slot. What is meant by that?
I think they maybe misunderstood. I think they misunderstood the announcement. There's no winning slots. It's just that when you gain a slot, when you register, then that slot's yours, unless you get deregistered.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So registrations is just the term we're using to describe winning slots. Yeah. Sorry, winning slots is used to describe registrations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Not to be confused with winning slots on Polkadot. The mining procedure on the main subnet won't change for the next month. No, it will not be changing. The mining procedure remains the same on the main subnet, NetUID 3. Why not have the same number of validators on NetUID 1 as there's NetUID 3? What happens to validators ranked 65 to 128?
Yeah, so we are going to have the same number of validators on the two subnetworks over time, though. And basically we can't have 128 validators on a network of 64 or 128 because then there'll be no miners, and the validators will just take up all the slots. So there needs to be a proportional number of validators to the number of available slots in the network. And the reason why we don't have 4096 slots to begin with is because we want to have a stable growth over the network. So we want to stabilize the network at 32 and 64 and 128 and 512 and 1024 before jumping to 4096, so that we have a better understanding of how the system is working.
Are you keeping the old registration method?
The registration method is the same. So registrations are POW based and also recycle based.
Okay. What are the exact times for launch? How long are you keeping the incentive off? We clarified this in the announcement, so the launch has already happened. We've already launched it. The incentive will remain off, I believe, for the next week, right, Const? So that'd be next Thursday. We'll tweak the incentive one more time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So yeah, next Thursday we'll increase it by 5%. Right now there's zero incentive, so you don't get anything. This is basically the time for you to set up and try things out and see how things work. Once the week is up, that's next Thursday, we will add 5% incentive to subnet 1, and that means that the incentive in subnet 3 is going to decrease by 5%, so it's going to be at 95%. So 5 and 95. What are the GPU requirements to run a miner? Aside from the GPU requirements, need to fine-tune the model. Okay, so the requirements we've already spoken of on the announcements and in the documentation. Just to kind of reiterate that, you need approximately, to be on the safe side, about 40 gigs of VRAM for a GPU. Ideally, GPUs that are tuned for machine learning will do you better. So the A series, for example, NVIDIA will do really good. For fine tuning, I think it's way too long to answer this question in Twitter Spaces, but it is a very common machine learning technique that you can most likely look up and see how people do it. But you effectively fine tune on a specific data set for a specific task. Where can I get the list of all available miners? Also the parameters for the Pythia miner.
That's in the README of the Pythia miner. Same with the Together Compute and the GPT-4 for all. I think, well, actually, no, I believe the Pythia just downloads automatically, so it shouldn't be an issue. The GPT-4 all miner, you're going to need to look at the description. So unlike the core miner that we had in the previous network that just ran everywhere, you could do -- model name, the miners are more bespoke in the sense that you need to write them specifically. We've changed slightly the API for people that are curious about reading the Python code. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What's the minimum validator stake for the new subnetwork?
Minimum validator stake. There isn't a minimum validator stake. It's based on the validator permits limit. So the number of validators that we consider in the validator set, which is right now 4, will shortly after this call be increased up to 16 likely. And then at 128, it will be 16 as well. And then as we increase the network size, we will be doubling the validators. I believe those numbers are correct. So the validator sizes were in here in the announcements. We have them at. I don't see them in here. Oh yeah, here they are: 16, 32, 64, and then when we get to 49.6, they'll go up to 128. So it's not based on the amount of stake. It's based on the number of validators that are like fixed at any time, and that's just taken as the top number of holding stake. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I saw a mention of a bug bounty system in the works by Zoro. Any progress or report or ETA on this? Will it be exclusively Bittensor bounties or all other AI projects?
This will be exclusively Bittensor bounties, AI bounties, likely. Anything within inside the ecosystem. We're just hoping to stimulate a little bit more in communication between some people in this community, or a way for people in this community to distribute tokens to help guide the system and expand into what we're doing. So I'm really excited about that. I want to talk to that actually. There has been just an explosion of applications built on top of effectively text prompting network that we can port over very easily. One per day almost, and so that is going to be amazing because we can put all these tools into our community and let people use it. So, yeah, so we're going to put bounties out for that. If there's anybody who's a Python developer, reach out to me and be like, "Hey, give me a bounty," and I got plenty of things. Let me know.
That's an interesting question. Are you not concerned with the risk that tau incentive drops per UID without the market valuation rise would result in the network's regression?
This is a good question, and I would say that this is absolutely one of our strengths. It's the fact that when the market goes down, good or ill, like markets are going to go all over the place. What they do is they push out ineffective miners and pull in effective miners that are efficient, and the system actually has churn in that way. So we've built an anti-fragile system, and using that power is what we should be doing. No, the system adapts. If the price goes down, then the expensive miners drop, and the people that can figure out how to do it cheaper stick around, and there's another ecosystem that's being built. I would say that this is a weird thing to say, but from one perspective, it's been almost too easy in the network for people to mine. Well, for a long time it was. Obviously now it's reached much more of an equilibrium. I won't say it's easy in any regard, but we have hit the boundary in some sense with what people are doing in the current network, and now the price is dropping a bit, and it'll improve the competition, and then we're going to bounce back up, and I'm sure this is going to continue indefinitely, and the same thing will happen with our network. Some of these chat models are expensive to run, and it's very likely that you won't be able to just you might not be able to run some of them, and miners will have to figure out cheaper ways of doing that.
Can we get a new Discord channel for questions related to the prompting network? I'm somewhat ahead of you. I've already put one down, so you're good to go. We have a new channel now in the Discord for Bittensor for subnet issues for subnet 1. And what we're probably going to do is we're going to convert Fini issues to subnet 3 issues. And we'll just do it that way. How do you guarantee to security, like for data privacy in the network?
This is a good question, and data privacy is something that I think that people want, and it's very difficult to have in this network without homomorphic encryption. Any form of encryption then limits the number of models that can be run. If you use a provider like OpenAI, obviously they're going to collect your data, but they're probably not going to release it to the internet. That's good. There's certainly an aspect here where you're querying your inputs out across the network. This is where we're focusing on actually training models from the network and showing how users can own their own weights also by using Bittensor to train those models very effectively. So distillation from the network is how we build private models, but the network itself is how we can get that data, how we can access these systems. So it's a very good question.
That is a very good question. Awesome. What are all these other miners about? Aleph Alpha, AI21, OpenAI, Goose AI, Cerebrus. Aside from Pythia, are they intended for other tasks?
A lot of them have specific training sets they've used, like the Anthropic one. Like Claude is trained on their data set. They may be better at certain areas of understanding. We don't have a Bloomberg GPT, but that, for instance, would have understanding of time series and financial data that would probably exceed almost any other miner on the network. So we don't really know which ones will perform well. We have to see, and we hope that there's some diversity in the network.
Think about like a tool set in a toolbox. You have a bunch of these, try them out, see what pops out, and these are kind of also serving as examples for adapting different company miners into Bittensor. So in a way, it's kind of showcasing what Colin said earlier. One of our biggest strengths, our ability to consume any technology and put it inside of Bittensor. So for the time being, use these miners as a guidepost for what we could do and what we can implement and how we can actually consume a different implementation of miner and kind of putting that into the network. Cool. When is multi-GPU support inference going to be implemented?
Was that not already implemented? We did deep speed.
Yeah, that was
right?
that was what I was asking, because I'm not entirely sure either. Pretty sure it is already implemented.
I remember. Yeah, and so there's the model parallel one that's like built into Hugging Face directly. Like all you have to do is do like model or device underscore map equals 0 when you import the model from pre-train. And then there was a deep speed one that Isabella worked on. It's on a branch somewhere. I don't know if it got merged in, but it's if you search the GitHub branches, it's there.
Okay, we'll double look into this one to make sure it didn't get lost in the weeds or anything. Cool. Has the ability to gain incentive on models become more difficult? I've used several different models recently, all deregistered, no matter how good the model is.
Well, that's a very broad question about what difficult is, and somewhat subjective. Um, the network is always going to become more difficult over time, in the sense that if it's not becoming more difficult over time, it's not effectively optimizing itself. Uh, that's the happy, sad answer to that question. Um, if things become easier, it means there's market inefficiencies. So that would be, I would say, a negative thing about the network. Has the network just recently become increasingly at a faster rate more difficult? Uh, there might be some lingering issues with the move over from Finny. Specifically, we decreased the resolution of some of the terms in the network, which made it a little bit more volatile with the registrations and deregistrations. So that some of your miners might get registered more often, and that might seem random. So that's all I'll say on that. But we have a whole team of people working on this, constantly trying to iron out those kind of problems. And if you have more specific, if there's if you have a more specific question about what you mean there, and you pass it to us, we can take a look at it.
It'd be good to provide what kind of models you're using, when you deployed them, what the incentive was, etc. Okay, piggybacking on the other Discord channel request, how about a channel specific for validators as well that is subnet agnostic? I mean, yeah, totally. We're open to that. We have the subnet specific. The validators always also work on subnets specifically, right? But we can also add one for others, not an issue. How can one get registered as that's already been answered. Okay, I think that's about it. The other questions are about fine tuning. Is it important for the miners to use context pruning during fine tuning? That's actually a question. What are your thoughts, Cons, Kara?
Say that one more time. Sorry.
Is it important for the miners to use context pruning during fine tuning?
It depends on the training objective, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're trying to make an SFT model that for dialogue or like conversation, probably not. But then again, like if you're just trying to do like the same training objective as like what they do when they pre-train, then it might be useful in some cases. For fine tuning on Nakamoto, I'd probably say no, and I'd say fine tuning for prompt, I'd probably also say no. But that I think that would need to be researched further and compared.
Yep. Sounds fair. I guess looking into the Twitter Spaces, we have one request for. Oh, I guess it's gone. If there's any requests to speak or to have a question or anything live, please go for it. Now's the time. We've got a few more moments, and then we'll be wrapping up. So I'm opening the floor here to anybody who wants to hop on and ask a question or anything. Oop, we got one. Serdar. Hey, Serdar. I think you can speak now. Yep, we can hear you.
Right now,
Hey,
I
what's
would
up?
ask my question directly here. First of all, thank you for your work, and we, the community, really appreciate it, and always look forward to these Twitter Spaces. To get to my question is, most crypto projects are marketing and hype, and little technology. Bittensor, on the other hand, is all technology and no hype, no marketing. So, given that, can you give us an update on the marketing plans, any upcoming marketing campaigns or initiatives that Bittensor has planned to get more attention?
Well, someone threw out an idea of like a marketing validator that we can delegate to. I'm marketing Bittensor and Opentensor the best way I know how to do. I guess this is all I know how to do. So I'm happy if there's other people that think that they have a better voice for this, like, step up and let us know, and we'll try to fund your efforts, whatever that is.
I can also speak to this a little bit. So the one thing to keep in mind as well here is that we're a little bit careful in our marketing. First of all, we're still building, right? This is still as long as it's been running, we can still say we're early stages, right? We're still just now in the stages of productization and kind of pushing. So from a marketing perspective, I think now is the optimal time to start marketing, right? Once this problem subnet is running and we're actually getting some good outputs that we can be proud of and kind of show off, now would be the time to start pushing stuff out and marketing about it. Having said that, I think you mentioned the word hype, and that's actually what we're trying to stay away from as much as we can, because hype leads to speculation, and we don't want to speculate on anything that we're running, especially on Tau. Specifically because a lot of projects, and in light of everything that's going on nowadays, a lot of projects, as you said, are a lot of hype, and they try to push their tokens as fast as they can. We're kind of more, you can maybe call us, in a sense, Bitcoin maximalists. We're more following that route and kind of letting the technology speak for itself. And as I mentioned, now that we're kind of building these subnets of prompting and other modalities, they're going to start speaking for themselves. So what we really want to do next is to start allowing the community to market as well, because I think that is you guys have a lot more freedom than we do in that sense. The most we can talk about is the is the artificial intelligence part, and that artificial intelligence part is something we've been kind of pushing for a while. We published in a few we published in Neural IPS, and we're going to publish in a few more conferences if we can down the year and down the line. But aside from that, it's a very thin line to tread between speculation and marketing, right? So the most we can talk about is the AI, but the rest of it, it's kind of the community's free to do.
We just got to talk about what we're doing, and
yeah,
exactly. I mean, we're going to consensus. We're going to consensus. You should go hear Rob speak about that in front of a whole panel of amazing people. I don't know if you can get on the panel.
Who, me? I think I am on the panel.
No. Like, I don't know if you could get into that specific panel talk, but we will be.
Well, there's going to be, I don't want to spoil anyone's surprises or anything, but there's going to be one on South Congress that's going to be hype. I'm going to be speaking at a couple, so if you can't catch me at some, you might be able to meet me at others. I'm going to have a quadruped with me, which is like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Boss Dynamics robot dogs. I'm going to be having
I'm familiar with
robot
Black Mirror.
dog. So it's going to be like that, except it's non-lethal, helpful and harmless, and it's going to follow me around and answer questions about Bittensor. So it'll be running on the prompting network. So,
I was just going to say, most importantly, is this powered by Bittensor?
It actually is powered by Bittensor. Okay. It's hype. Yeah.
Awesome. That's dope.
You say, go get me a Dr. Pepper, and it'll walk over, get you Dr. Pepper. And then you say, who is Yuma Rao? And then, it just like starts bowing down, all hell Yuma Rao,
Awesome. Oh, Cameron, I saw your post. Yes, Collision as well. We're looking to participate in that. Batster is asking, when will Chat-Tensor be released?
So soon.
So soon. This was like the last step.
This is the last step, yeah. Once this prompting network is powered now, we'll be able to power Chat-Tensor with it, and then we're good to go. So it shouldn't take long now.
We're good. I have the new version of Chat-Tensor pulled up right now, and I sent those examples in the group chat. I don't know if you saw.
I've been playing with it. Actually, I'm going to feel like coach people to play with that too. If you want to just ping the network and see what pops out, and you can build applications with that and everything. So.
Yeah, and like I'm really looking forward to like the Auto GPT Baby AGI stuff. Come check out the live streams and the the videos that we're going to make. Our goal is to have as many of the demos running on Bittensor as possible. So
it's gonna be great.
Heck yeah!
Awesome.
Should we end it?
Yeah, I think that's all the questions I can see.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. Big day, really exciting for us, obviously. Thank you, Serdar, for coming on the stage here and asking your question. There's going to be a bounty program also open for these things. Serdar already reached out to me. Let us know. I would totally like to see some people build some new miners for us. Get on to these applications. We have to do this now as a community we have to make us think. We need to show that we can build a decentralized artificial intelligence system that's going to be outside of the control of bureaucrats and governments, and that anybody can use it and anybody can own it. And that's us. Like, we're in a really interesting moment in history, I think. Like this,
Yeah.
Rob, you speak to it.
No, well, I think that if you hear someone saying that the government should start regulating, that we should be reporting pre-training jobs to the government, be very suspicious of them claiming this, right? And ask yourself, right, like, are they invested in OpenAI or a company like that? Are they trying to get regulatory capture such that small and individuals who can't afford to comply with these regulations, let alone afford to pre-train these models? This is, I think, what we're seeing right now with people advocating for this is a form of regulatory capture, and we should call it out when we see it, and also build systems so that can't happen. But
I'm
yeah.
less worried about the regulatory capture than I'm worried about individual freedoms. Or, it is about regulatory capture. It is about corporations taking control and just, building a moat for themselves. I think that's absolutely true. But I think that it's this particular technology and the moat that could potentially be built around it is going to be way more devastating for humanity if we do it incorrectly. And it's, yeah. So anyways, we can end on that note. I think it's uplifting that we're here today. We've put this thing out. It's a small network. It's only 64 UIDs. It's breaking every 10 minutes, but it's going forward. So fuck yeah, guys.
Hey, is that a Bittensor on 3 right there?
Yeah.
Oh God, Bittensor on 3. All right, 1, 2, 3, Bittensor. Let's go.
Bittensor.
All right, guys. Hey, great job on the
ciao,
Prompting
guys.
Network. Yeah.
Thanks everyone.
Bye, guys.
All right. Take care. Bye.